Here's everything runners should know about proximal hamstring tendinopathy. First, it's an overload condition where the hamstrings attach onto the pelvis. And it's worse with hip flexion, so things like sitting, running, and squatting are all typically painful. And while stretching the hamstrings is typically painful, it's important to know that it's not damaging to the tendon. This is because while there's high compressive loads of the tendon against the ischial tuberosity, but there's low tensile load on the tendon, meaning that the overall load on the tendon is low, meaning that it's safe for the tendon. When it comes to rehab, the overall goal is to increase the tolerance of the hamstrings. Initially starting off with an isometric contraction, which is where the muscle contracts but the joint actually doesn't move, is helpful because we can control the amount of hip flexion. A long lever bridge can be held for 30 to 45 seconds, which keeps the hip in an extended position while still loading the hamstring. These can either be performed with both legs or a single leg to increase the challenge. The next progression is to add movement and to gradually increase the amount of hip flexion. The long lever bridge can be used again, slowly lifting the hip up off the ground and then slowly back down to the ground. Ideally, this entire movement should be performed over 6 to 8 seconds. To further increase the hip range of motion, either a hip thrust or a banded pull-through can also be used. Then when returning to running, running form is an important consideration, especially overstriding, which is when the foot makes contact with the ground in front of the body, which is going to increase the loads on the tendon. So to avoid this, focus on increasing your step rate by taking smaller and quicker steps. It'll make sure that your feet land underneath you when you run.